Hey everyone, this is James,
Marco,
Nabil,
and Mikey.
And this is the Movie Pals podcast number 181. Today we are continuing our voyage into Star Trek with a review of Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. And after that, we are going to be diving into the full review of the new Alien film, Alien Romulus. So let's get started.
That distortion, see it?
Yes, sir. It's getting larger as we close in.
Firing range, sir. Ahwe. Doshi-bosh.
So, if you are new to the podcast, we are going through all the Star Trek theatrical films, starting from the first film all the way through the Kelvin timeline. So, total of, I think, 13, 14 films, something like that.
So many films. But they're all great in their own way.
Yeah. What we'd like to do, just like we did for our Coppola Corner, is that we will break down what happened since the last film, which was The Wrath of Khan from 1982, to the new film here, Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock from 1984. So after the Wrath of Khan's success, Paramount quickly greenlit a third Star Trek film. Leonard Nimoy stepped in as director, and producer Harv Bennett crafted a screenplay focused on Spock's resurrection and the Enterprise's destruction, aiming for a dramatic and operatic feel with a larger budget.
Nimoy and producer Harv Bennett worked with ILM to design new ships and effects for The Search for Spock, incorporating detailed sets and props. Efforts were made to reflect the Star Trek universe authentically, with attention to even minor elements like the Klingon pet.
costume designer Robert Fletcher returned to create elaborate outfits for The Search for Spock, drawing from cultural inspirations and using Paramount's fabric resources. He also collaborated on refining Klingon and Vulcan makeup for a more natural screen appearance.
To avoid leaks, Paramount used strict security measures during the Search for Spock's production, which started in August of 1983. Filming involved innovative lighting and complex pyrotechnics for the Genesis planet's destruction, though some planned scenes were cut due to budget constraints.
Visual effects for The Search for Spock were limited by time and budget, with ILM providing 120 shots and using techniques like motion control for models and practical effects for explosions. The film's effects included complex miniatures and new innovations like the Klingon Bird of Prey's cloaking device.
James Horner returned to score The Search for Spock, reworking themes from The Wrath of Khan and introducing new ones for the Klingons. He focused on sensitive cues and drew on classical music, maintaining continuity with previous scores while adding new elements.
Leonard Nimoy framed The Search for Spock around the theme of friendship and sacrifice, exploring philosophical and religious ideas like resurrection and ethical concerns about science. The film contrasts personal sacrifice with state-imposed death and examines the implications of technological advancement.
The Search for Spock's had modest marketing push with items like calendars and Taco Bell glasses, and its novelization became a bestseller. The film opened in nearly 2,000 theaters, grossing over $16 million in the first weekend and $87 million worldwide. James Horner's soundtrack was reissued and expanded, marking his final Star Trek contribution.
The Search for Spock received mostly positive reviews, praised for its dedication and Nimoy's direction, but criticized for its aging cast and complex plot. While some found it a grand space opera, others felt it was overly serious with mixed opinions on the effects. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into our review of Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock.
All that they've loved, all that they've fought for, all that they've stood for will now be put to the test. Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock.
The word, sir? The word is no. I am therefore going anyway.
You do this, you'll never sit in the captain's chair again.
Engage auto systems. Clear all moorings.
Cleared, sir.
1/4 impulse power. Someone is stealing the Enterprise. Warp speed.
Klingon Bird of Prey, sir. She's arming torpedoes.
Shields up.
All right, so the Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, 1984. It's currently at 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. The summary is Admiral Kirk and his bridge crew risk the careers stealing the decommissioned USS Enterprise to return to a restricted Genesis planet to recover Spock's body. This was directed by Leonard Nimoy, who did 3 Men and a Baby in 1987, The Good Mother in 1988, Funny About Love in 1990, and Holy Matrimony in 1994. This is based on Star Trek, created by Gene Roddenberry, written by Harv Bennett, who also did Star Trek 4 and 5. It was released in June 1st of 1984, had a budget of $16 million, and in the box office made $87 million. The cast is starring William Shatner as James T. Kirk, DeForest Kelley as Leonard McCoy, James Doohan as Montgomery Scott, George Takei as Hikaru Sulu, Walter Koenig as Pavel Chekhov, Nichelle Nichols as Uhura, Dame Judith Anderson as Talar, Robin Curtis as a recasted Savik, Christopher Lloyd as Kruge, Martin Leonard as Sarik, and Merritt Buttrick as David Marcus. So let's go around the room first and see everybody's history with the movie. We'll start with Marco.
Truthfully, this is the movie I think I've seen the least. Honestly, I don't know why. It just every time they've shown the marathons on like TNT or whatever channel, I've always like skipped it, I guess, and just gone straight to the fourth one and the fifth one. It's weird, and it's no hate on the movie, but I can count on one hand how many times I've seen this movie. And it's probably like 3, if that. Yeah, I'd say it's 3.
You're probably at the age at that time. You were like, what, 45? And you hadn't gotten any need to watch any more Star Trek stuff.
He's like, I'm past this.
It was too old, you know. I didn't even watch the theatrical release. I was like, you know what, man?
Yeah, we go
like
through that as we get older. I understand. I feel like I look forward to that in the future.
Yeah, I got to move on. So, yeah, I'd say I don't have that much experience with it. Truthfully, even though it's called The Search for Spock, I would always forget like what the premise of the movie was.
I mean,
It's kind of
there's more to it than they're just looking for Spock. Like, you know, more shit happens. You know what I mean?
Nabil, what are your thoughts? Or, what's your history with this one?
Honestly, just like Marco, I've probably seen the film twice. It's the one I've seen the least of the original Star Trek films, and I don't even remember seeing it much on TV, on cable, like on TNT or anything like that. I did a marathon. I really feel like I went through this with you, James, but maybe I just did it on my own at one point.
Maybe we did. I think we might have.
I think when the new Star Trek films were coming out, one of them, we wanted to just kind of see the originals at one point.
That sounds about right, because I think that came out, maybe, I don't know, actually. Or maybe when one of them came out, you and I, because we probably did, but I don't recall. I don't know.
Yeah. But I know that was the last time I've seen it. It had to have been like late or like mid 2010s or something like that. I can't really remember what year it would have been, and that would have been like maybe my second time seeing this film, to be honest. And the first time would have been me watching it an old, most likely on HBO or something like that. But I haven't seen it much. It just never showed up on TV a lot. It wasn't something I was interested in.
James, I remember from the last time you said you kind of got this one confused with some of the stuff in Khan. So did you have any history?
Because I think it's because the plot is so... It directly takes place right after Wrath of Khan, unlike the other one where there's some time period jump, you know? This one itself is immediately after that, you know, or if anything, a few weeks maybe? Like they're just...
The middle 3 are like
damaged.
That.
Yeah. So that's probably why I mixed it up, because it all feels like one story to me. That's why. So yeah, and I've probably only seen this once before. So, or if Nabil's story is true, then maybe twice. So
yeah, I honestly, for myself, I thought I have seen all these movies. I've never seen this one.
Really?
Yeah, I was watching this and I got like 10 minutes in. I was like, I don't remember any of this stuff. So I don't think I've ever seen it before.
What is this one?
So I always get this. I always thought this one was the one with the whales, and that's the next one, right? So it's like I don't know where this movie came from. I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand how I missed the movie. I thought I've seen them all, but I definitely have never seen this movie before. This was my first time watching it, so at least that I can remember.
You must have just been surprised when you saw the fourth one.
This has got to be like the first movie. Yeah, true, right? He's like, no way, he came back. This has got to be one of the first movies then. And by the way, we are spoiling, just like previous Star Trek films. We do not hold back on spoilers on this. The movie's been out for almost over 40 years at this point, right? Yeah. So, sorry. I think it's actually exactly 40 years, right?
40 years.
Pretty close to it, yeah.
So, sorry about that.
Mike is like, Jesus Christ, Kirk's gut. Fuck.
Man, why does everyone look so old? Because they are. But no, so this is the first movie then, Mikey, that one of us has not seen previously, in a strange way. You know, maybe you saw it in passing, like certain scenes, because your dad was a big fan, so I'm assuming he's watched it a few times.
I know he's seen it, but I talked to him about it, and he actually was like, I don't like this one. So I don't think he watched it very often, and that's probably why I haven't seen it.
Do you think it's almost because it's coming from like the high of like Wrath of Khan, that's why? Or as you guys know, there's that curse of like every other Star Trek film is not the greatest or something.
Yeah.
The odds, right? The odd numbers.
The odd ones, yeah.
I can name
the first one either, though. So
as we go into this, in my opinion.
Let's get into it here. Let's go over just overall thoughts of the film, and if you have anything about the plot you wanted to talk about. And since Marco, you just were mentioning you got a little stuff to talk about, why don't you start?
I guess I'm kind of with your dad on this one, Mikey. This one wasn't necessarily my favorite, and I gotta say it's probably why I've only seen it like 3 times, if that. It's not that the plot, the story sucks. It's I guess that's the way it's told, man. It's a slowdown from the Wrath of Khan, where Wrath of Khan, we talked about it. It has a slow beginning, and then once the action starts, it just kind of goes from there. This one it's just sort of flat lines, dude. Like, even with the action sequences, like, they're not, I understand, like, they did cool things with the special effects and whatnot. It still didn't really grasp me. I was just like, okay. And I I think a lot of it has to do, I don't know, the camera angles. Like, you had some really cool camera angles in Wrath of Khan for the battle scenes and stuff. Like, they I mean, for the time, like, obviously they use like tricks like moving the camera towards the ship to make it look like it's moving or stuff like that, or when it's getting battle damage. And this one, it just always seems like they're just fucking standing still, dude. And I'm just like, okay, cool. You're in ships, we're in space. You're not gonna move around. All right. Additionally, I think, no offense to the guy, but I think Leonard Nimoy kind of got me out of it too. And I'll get into more of that later, but the plot just wasn't executed as well as I expected, as opposed to Wrath of Khan.
Okay. James, your thoughts?
Bored out of my mind. Whole movie. Could barely make it through this one, guys. I won't lie. I fell asleep 8-9 times, maybe. At one point, I missed 40 minutes of the movie, had to practically restart the film. And there was times where I kept missing 5 to 10, had to go back. At a certain point, I was just like, I'm gonna have to just figure out the plot. Kind of read through Wikipedia at the same time.
Just like
gave myself a little heads up there. I'm like, okay, I see what's going on. Not a fan. This is what I feel like a lot of Star Trek is for me. How I view it, it's just boring as shit. I feel like this movie could have been summarized in like a 10 to 15 minute like little epilogue episode, probably. Not much happens. I mean,
they could have just added it to the Wrath of Khan, right? Like, just the last.
It could have been like, just
minutes.
kidding. Guess what?
Yeah.
But then they added this whole subplot, and I mean, I get it, but I just like I said, bored out of my mind. It was a rough time getting through this one.
Yeah, I watched that ending like 5 times. I kept falling asleep.
All right, Nabil, did you fall asleep? How did you like this one?
I'll be honest, I also fell asleep. It's that ending part, like, it's just like 3 endings.
It kind of goes on, right?
Yeah, and I thought I saw it, and then I woke up at a part near the end where Leonard Nimoy's, Spock shows up, and he's like talking. I'm like, oh, I don't remember how we got here. So I had to rewind.
It's boring if the falls asleep.
There apparently is a speech where I think, is it McCoy talking to the body or something?
Maybe that's what it was
in the ship. Maybe. Or something. I don't recall that. I don't recall that scene at all.
I remember the fight scene at the end, and then suddenly I guess I just fell asleep.
The guy talked about, though, that was the hardest scene to do because Leonard Nimoy was directing him and like his eyes were moving or some stuff, and I was like, I don't even remember that scene.
Yeah, it's the ending is hard to get through, to be honest. It's not, and like James was saying earlier, it all makes sense to why they were doing it, and they kind of set themselves up for it. Obviously, in the last film, they had to do something to show how Spock comes back, and they definitely used the idea of like the Easter egg of remember to Bones to say that was his way of saying he's in him, and now he's going to remember to come back, but. Yeah, it could have just been like 20, 30 minutes into the beginning of the film. Spock, you're back. And then we go fight the Klingon. And there's some, we could have changed things a bit around and, that would have been fine. But I wasn't as big of a fan. It was an okay film to me. So I enjoyed some aspects of it.
So I did not fall asleep in this movie. However, I do kind of echo what some of you guys are saying. I really felt like this was just an extended version of like a TV episode. And they just kind of stretched it out a little too far. And it could have definitely just been an addition to Khan. Like they could have just taken some of the beginning part out and just used this as part of the stuff that they did use at the end. just condensed it down a little bit. They didn't need the whole like stealing of the Enterprise, and I mean they could have just got rid of that.
They do that to show like what they'll do for their friend, basically, right? That's the whole friendship theme, and like, hey, we'll possibly lose our careers and jobs to save the person that we love, you know?
I guess.
I mean,
But like,
sure.
why the Enterprise though? They could have took.
I actually asked Mark. Yeah, your guys text me. I said, "Is there no smaller ships they could have just taken?"
There
or was it
are.
because like, they knew it was empty? But doesn't the Enterprise take more than? I guess you can run it with 3 dudes. I guess that's all you need.
Guess you need the people on the bridge. That's it.
Yeah, you can. You theoretically can in any state of emergency. You can do that with ships, but the thing where they fucked up is they didn't make any fucking backup systems like that, like other episodes do. I'm like, don't you? You can essentially make it so every console on the bridge can control the entire ship, and they did it so that only one does. And I'm like, that's fucking stupid.
It was also damaged though from the last thing, so they didn't have a chance to do any real repairs to it. So
Oh yeah, that's all they
Straight
did.
because the friend was gone.
yeah.
But that's like that's like Shatner's like wife, right? So he's like, no, not my baby, not my baby.
Well, Marco, you've been talking about Nimoy and some of these battle things and things that you want to kind of bring up. Let's go ahead and get into that here. What were you alluding to earlier?
I said this to James when he was watching it. I could not see Doc Brown. Like, I couldn't stop seeing Doc Brown in Leonard Nimoy. Like, the whole fucking time, I was like, we gotta get to 1.21 gigawatts. And I was like, oh my god, is he trying to go back to the future?
I forgot he was in this movie, by the way. I was like, oh crap, I forgot he was in this movie.
Me too. And I think this came out like either the same year or right before Back to the Future, 84.
Yeah, I don't think he was known for Back to the Future yet.
Yeah, but still, he does the same squints that Doc Brown does. He has almost the same mannerisms, and I'm like, it's Space Doc Brown, basically.
That might just be Christopher Lloyd Axe, Marco, from the sound of it.
True. Now, he was an asshole. He played a really good asshole. I'll give it that. Like he really did push the asshole theory. I didn't really see him as menacing if he was supposed to. He wasn't menacing as much as he was just a fucking douchebag.
But what was his motivation? I still don't understand why he wanted the god.
Because he could use it as a weapon, right? That's what I was getting from it. And so,
exactly.
And it's like a continuation from the storyline from the basic from the movie, right? In a way.
Was the fear from part 2 that they could weaponize Genesis, and here's the Klingon that wants to use it, and because they hate the Federation, that's why they want to use it, and they think that the Federation is hiding it as a like
their own weapon to destroy the Klingons down the line, right?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. But again, they could have added that at the end of Khan. Easy.
Yeah, and they kind of allude to like he wants to expand his own empire, like the Klingon Empire. So not only is the hatred for them, but he wants to use it to expand his own, his people's reign.
Because he is like a royalty or something, right?
Yeah, apparently he's some kind of royal.
They all have houses in the Klingon Empire. That's how they rule. So it's like space Game of Thrones, basically. Yeah. So
Makes
like
sense.
the only way to gain more power and prestige is either if you have more influence or if you do conquests like he wanted to do. So if you bring more honor, more conquest, more wins in battle, then you earn more credibility and you earn more power in their empire. And that's kind of what his motivation was. But again, could have put it at the end of Khan. Last thing I'll talk about on him is the whole fight between him and Kirk was very underwhelming. I thought it was going to be a little bit, more climactic, considering that, we're in full spoilers. I mean, dude kills Kirk's son, it's like, what an underwhelming fucking battle. And then for him to just fall into the fucking cliff, I was like,
I mean, David was a really kind of a nobody fuck anyways, though, right?
True.
Yeah.
But that's,
to clean that storyline up, and they're like, this is how we do it.
Yeah, they're like, this is getting a little sloppy, boys. No one's attaching to David as we thought they would.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm selling a lot of David action figures.
They did try to expand the character of David, though. I mean, like they put some scenes in there where he's kind of like his father, even though his father didn't bring him up. He made.
I don't think his father's ever got stabbed in the face either, though. So.
No, but they made him he made some bad decisions when he was making the Genesis project, right? He used some materials he wasn't supposed to.
Unstable. That's why the planet's falling
like the same thing. Yeah. So it's like he made some bad decisions, and he did try to save Civic and that kind of stuff here too. So he kind of goes out and above. So they kind of tried to do something with them, but nothing that they did really
He's such a nobody character. Even when
he's just nobody. Yeah.
When Shatner overacts when his son dies, I was just laughing when that part happened. He's like, those bastard Klingons. I'm like, damn, William Shatner really can't act.
You killed my son.
It's supposed to be like this really touching moment, but I'm like, once again, we don't really care about that character. We've never really connected with them. They've shared maybe one or two scenes. Like, they don't share any actual scene in this one together.
And yeah, that was
Other
the
than
other
the
thing.
death scene, yeah.
In this film at all. So
You know, well, you see the
anticlimactic
body, right?
death, too.
But
Right.
he's already dead. So, I mean, I don't know. Didn't work for me.
Now, we keep pushing this hard, but I mean, that's also another reason why it would have fit better at the end of Khan.
I mean, we
they had
say
whole
that,
arc.
but then there's too much going on in Khan already. I don't think another subplot would have helped.
Yeah.
I don't know. They could have done like half of it, and then Spock comes back halfway through. Then there's still a ongoing plot. That's the way I would have shot the film.
I mean, they could have just not made the planet and used the Genesis device on Spock to save his life instead of having him die.
Yeah, but they wanted to fucking keep the plot going from the second one, dude.
No, I'm just saying in Khan, right? They could have just kind of retconned the whole planet being made and just used it on Spock to keep him alive, and he never dies, right? So that could have been what they could have played with. You scrap the Klingon stuff that happened, use that. They wouldn't need to even make this next or the third film at all after that. So,
I think
Spock's out there.
I think the plot of this film, there's a good story here, but the way, well, besides the fact that, you know, the acting isn't the strongest here and the writing isn't the best either, the way the story is being told in the order that it's being told is what is causing the problem, at least to me. Like, if we address the Spock thing at the beginning of the film and they went and actually brought him back, and then they start, like, Kirk starts encountering, you know, Krug, and also his son dies in the you know, somewhere here and fighting with Krug or something like that to kind of defend his father or the crew of the ship. You know, like, you do a little bit of playing around with the story a little bit, change some of the order of the events and things. I think you got a good story. Like, there are pieces here. That's why I say, like, I like the film fine. Like, it isn't a strong entry in the Star Trek universe, but it's an okay one because there are elements that are like James had mentioned, even like the whole saving their friends thing, like that element of at the beginning where they're assembling the crew and getting everybody together to figure out how they're going to get off the base to get to, you know, the ship. Like, it wasn't all best executed, but it was interesting. It was fun to see a little bit, you know. And then when they were on the ship together, and then when they did actually go into battle, even though the fights aren't the strongest and it was a little underwhelming, especially the ending, you could see some aspects of like Krug and his brutality. He's just shooting at the ships, you know. He destroyed his fellow Klingon ship. They were attacking the Enterprise. Like, some of that was a little bit of exciting to see, and you could see the brutality that he has in him, but there were elements there, but it just wasn't fully realized to the point where, especially for a sequel that's coming right off the heels of the last one that did so well, I feel like they could have amped it up a bit more, give us a little bit more in that, and there could have been a better movie here.
I agree.
Yeah. Could have said it better myself.
Well, I think we kind of touched on most of the stuff we have. I just want to kind of leave it open for everybody. Does anybody have any kind of high points or highlights, anything else they wanted to talk about before we get into our ratings?
Oh yeah, man, they're getting pretty long in the tooth now, right?
Oh man,
age wise,
so old. Just 2 years, 2 years, and I was like, damn, they got
see.
really old.
I don't know if it's just because we're seeing it in 4K now too. Like, the makeup on them is really like they're wearing some heavy makeup. Even the guys,
There's like
man.
4 more films
Yeah.
though in this franchise or something like that. That's like, how do they look
They're
so
gonna look
old
Marco's
in
age
this
by the end of it. I know it's gonna be wild.
That's
I
crazy.
know. Well, the makeup probably gets better over the years, Nabil. I don't know.
Maybe.
They gotta go through the 80s. Their makeup artists are probably just coked out, man.
That's true. He's like, yeah, it looks good. Fuck it.
Shatner,
We don't need lighting. It's fine.
remember he slipped, right? He slipped out of his. He's kept eating.
Strangely enough, I think some of the highlights of the movie are actually on the Klingon ship. Like, it's
They're
cool
pretty
to see
cool.
the
the
cloak is pretty
design
cool.
of the ship is actually cool. Once again, I have no history with these, but I like the look of the ship. I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that's the only time a ship really moves is when it's focused on the Klingon ship. Yeah, it's cool to see it like cloak. It's cool to see the inside. I think this is like the first time, other than like the glimpse we get in the first movie, that we see like the inside of a Klingon ship, which is kind of cool, like a modern version and not the TV show. So I like that aspect of it, but really nothing else.
I like the once again the shot. There's a really good shot of the Enterprise docking in the space station again. For some reason, they just really get those right. It looks actually really good in this movie.
Yeah,
so,
that actually does look good. I enjoyed that too, James. That was
it's quick. It's not like the first one where it takes 15 minutes. I know you guys hated it, which I liked, but it's quick. But it actually looks really good. Well, although I will say, guys, they're trying to give. They still don't give enough time to all the characters on the crew, and even the 3 movies in, I don't feel like everyone. Like they try to, like your Uhura has a moment, but then she disappears to the last 5 minutes of the film. And it's like, damn, I guess they don't want her around or something. Or
they really minimize the cast on this one a lot. Actually,
like
there's only a few characters that have a big spot.
Well, it's interesting because they're all so much here, but I don't remember a lot of interactions with them. It's really just Kirk and Bones. Bones is there because of what's going on, but
Bones is probably the second most used character in this one too, outside of Kirk. That's true because he has Spock's like spirit in him, right?
Right.
His essence.
His essence.
He goes to
his dad has
kind of like gay bar. I don't know what bar he's going to over there, but
yeah, dude, the bar was sus, man. He's just like, this is where I go, and then I'm like, man, is he wearing an ascot?
Yeah,
that's it. I was like, oh, dude, Bones looks so fucking old in this movie, though.
He does.
Is he 70 years old?
I don't know.
Dude, I don't know. If you told me he was 68, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. He looks about 68. He looks old. You got to say, he looks old.
Yeah,
and even at the end, after the Spock transfer, I don't know if that aged him or he was on something, but he looked even older, dude.
It just was like a mental strain they're trying to show or something like that.
Fine, Jim. Fine. I'm like, it don't look like you're fine. You want to take a seat, man?
Someone get an IV bag for this guy.
Yeah, this guy looks like he's slept in fucking 72 hours. He's like, I'm not lying. I took a little bit of the goofies back there, and I'm not feeling too good.
Well, let's wrap this up with our ratings, and if we recommend the movie, I'll just go around the room here. And James, I'll start with you.
I give this one a 2.5. I can't really recommend this one for casual fans. If you're a hardcore Star Trek, probably yes. If you're going through them all, you want to watch them. But for a casual one, unlike the other two, this is a really hard recommend.
Okay, Nabil?
I gave this a 3. It was fine. I don't know if I could recommend it either, only because it's already in the title. They're searching for Spock. If you really want to know what happens, it's for continuity's sake, sure, but it's not really necessary. You know, they find him. So, and then we go into the next film.
And Marco?
I give it 2.5 stars also, and that's only because it's a Star Trek movie. You can really skip this one. You can probably do like the YouTube recap on this one. Yeah,
5-minute synopsis video.
I will mention I do like the ending, by the way, when Spock comes back. I think that's I like his dialogue with it. I think is nice, where he's like, I remember I called you Jim, and then they're like, oh, our buddy's back. I actually like it. It's a little heartwarming moment. That's one thing I want to bring up. I'm not trying to totally shit on it. That's all.
Well, that would have been less than 2.5, so you didn't totally shit on it the way it is anyways. But I also gave it 2.5 stars. I just thought it was kind of boring. It didn't seem like a full-fledged movie to me. It felt like just an extended episode. And it's definitely not a recommend. I think you could skip this one and be just fine.
Thank you, Mikey. Truthfully, we got a lot of Star Trek films left. I don't think this is going to be the first of the ones that we don't recommend, tell you the truth. I recall a lot of these movies coming up. So without further ado, let's get into our main review now of Alien Romulus.
This place gives me the creeps.
What the hell is this?
I don't know.
What the fuck was that? Young?
Stop playing around, man. Just get up.
I'm not playing around. There's something in the water.
What do you mean there's something in the water?
I don't know. There's just something in the fucking water.
Alien Romulus, currently sitting at 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. The description is, while scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonists come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. This is directed by Fede Alvarez, who directed the 2013 Evil Dead reboot, Don't Breathe in 2016, and The Girl in the Spider's Web in 2018. This was released on August 16th, 2024 in theaters with a budget of $80 million It's currently sitting at a box office about $108.2 million. It's considered a pretty decent success so far. This is starring Kaylee Spaney as Rain, David Johnson as Andy, Archie Renault as Tyler, Isabella Merced as Kay, Spike Fern as Yorn, and Eileen Wu as Navarro. So let's start with you guys. How did you like the film? Did you like it or not? Let's keep it brief. Mikey, what about you?
I really enjoyed this one. I thought the story was pretty basic, but it allowed the movie to kind of breathe and kind of slow everything down for the horror elements that they had in the film. And it really feels like they kind of went in and just made this movie as close as they could to be in the world of Alien. And you could basically just drop this movie in between the two films that it's set in, and it would fit perfectly fine.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. Nabil, what about you?
Yeah, I thought this was also quite enjoyable. The story was very simple. The characters were interesting enough to see, you were invested in what was going to happen to them. At least the main characters here. And they still added enough of a twist here to have Andy as a part of it. I enjoyed seeing his character in this. That was a little different take than what we've seen in the other films. And the alien aspect of it was scary enough. It wasn't overly horror. Like, I didn't feel as creeped out as like the first one per se, but there was enough scare moments over there that I was invested. It's like, what's going to happen next? How are they going to get out of this? So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Nice. What about you, Marco?
Kind of echoing what Mikey and Nabil are saying. I enjoyed it. I think it really did feel like it sat between, the first two movies. Like the first two movies, Alien and Aliens, have a certain look to them that I feel sort of gets deviated from in the other sequels to a point, but this one felt like just like it fit right in, like what Mikey was saying, because even though those other sequels and prequels take place in the same universe, like it is true, some of the looks and the feel it feels a little off. It's like, all right, I guess, but it's cool that they showed the planet and you saw like the colony, which is reminiscent of Aliens, then you see the inside of the ship, which felt a bit claustrophobic like the first movie. And it was cool that the crew themselves were like just ordinary people, just workers, just like, in the original film, like just, I guess space employees. In the first one, they were space truckers. And this one, they're, space miners, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, actually. I had a lot of fun watching this. I agree with Mikey, too. The look of the film, I thought was just perfect. I really liked Fede Alvarez's take on this, and you can tell that he's a big fan of the original films, and it definitely shows in this. Just like Mark said, I like it. I actually like that it's a young cast. These are basic kids. These are like young kids that are trying to make their way.
Really, really young, right? Because I felt really old. I was like, this is what 20-year-olds look like now?
Yeah. They're like late 20s, the girl might be like considered a teenager, I think, 19 or 20, something like that.
Okay, I feel better
so,
about that.
Yeah, she's awesome. Kaylee Spaney was also in Civil War, we talked about before, so
fantastic movie.
That's right.
Yeah. Once again, probably should have been in The Last of Us, but it's fine. But yeah, I liked it. I agree too, Nabil. It's not as scary as I thought, especially coming from Fede Alvarez with his Evil Dead remake, and Don't Breathe with how horrific that movie turns out to be. I thought it was going to turn into something way different at certain points, but they almost hold back to kind of give you a little bit of Alien, a little bit of Aliens, a little bit of Prometheus too in it too, which is nice. So overall, I had a lot of fun. I thought the cast was really well done. I thought the pacing was really good too. I was not once bored with this one. So, like I said, overall, a lot of fun on it. Nabil, thoughts on the plot here? So I know it is, even though not as much as a horror film, right? It is somewhat, they are touting it as kind of a return to more of the feel of the first Alien film, right? With that mix of it, with the plot, it's a pretty simple plot, I'd say, right?
Yeah, I mean, no big spoilers over here, but they're essentially on a mining planet and they're trying to find a way to get off of it. And so they find a ship and they're like, we need to, or a stasis pod or whatever, and they're trying to get to it so they can travel away. And very simple plot. Nothing wrong with that. It's the focus is supposed to be on the journey, right? Getting to what they need to get out of there. And I think that they do a good job with that creep element, because you're going into, in the same way as like watching we'll say Aliens, the second one, where they're going onto the base and everything's just kind of empty and they don't know what happened here. You're getting that creep feeling of you're walking into the unknown. Something happened here, but we don't know what it is, and they're just kind of bumping into things in this. And as they fall into the situation, they've set themselves up essentially for failure and something. And this is how the aliens end up attacking them. So that, I think, that eeriness, the quietness, the loneliness in space kind of feeling, that is all present in this film. And that, like the original film, the original Alien film, adds to like that horror element. The aspect of like seeing the alien and getting attacked, there's those, gory horror elements as well. But I don't know. I don't feel like it's as intense as maybe those original ones were. I think the surrounding elements and the environment is what is really amping up, like the unknown of what's going to happen next is what's adding to that scariness of the film.
Yeah. What did you think about that, Marco?
I agree with Nabil that it did capture parts of the horror elements of the first one, but at the same time, I feel like it also captured some of the fast-pacedness of the second one of Aliens. So I think this notion that it's like back to Alien, I think it's back to like those first two movies, and like it marries those two ideas where it does get kind of creepy, because even the sequel Aliens is a bit creepy as well too in some aspects. Cameron did a great job with that, albeit a bit more fast paced. So I see this movie kind of more like it's crazy because it sits in between these two movies, and the horror element is just like that. Like you're essentially entering a derelict, haunted, quote unquote, ship with these creatures that you have no idea like what they are. And right when you do, it's like it's too late, and you're trapped in there with them with nowhere to go. So it did capture that aspect of the original, but it more modern. And a lot of modern horror movies are a bit more fast paced. So I think Fede Alvarez did a good job at bringing those two ideas and modernizing them a bit. I myself, though, I'm more of a fan of kind of the slower burn and the creep factor of that. So in that, I kind of agree with you, James, that it's creepy, but it's not necessarily like horror or super scary. There are freaky things that happen, like Nabil was saying. You have like the aliens attacking them, and you have the little mouth coming at you, and that stuff's pretty creepy. But there is one scene later on that's pretty fucking graphic that I feel like Fede Alvarez did an exceptional job on, that I'll talk about.
All right, Mikey, what about you? Anything stand out with the feel of the movie overall, plot wise? For instance, like, did you like how the face huggers were kind of more of a threat this time around too? Kind of switched up with that.
That's actually exactly where I was going to go with this. I do feel like the xenomorph, some of the shots they took, they kind of cut away from him too early, so you don't get that like creepiness as much as you did in some of the first film. But the face huggers were really like cleverly used in this one, because there's just a mass of them, right? So it's not like a creep factor. It's more like just a threatening, tense kind of scenes that they develop them. I mean, there's a scene where they have to go through a hallway, and it's just filled with face huggers. And I won't talk about like what they do to get through it or anything like that, but it's just a good type of scene, and it builds a real tense moment. And all the characters, you could just see fear on their face really throughout that whole scene, and it just created a really cool like feel and vibe for that we didn't get with the face huggers in the other films, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Nabil, what about character wise? We got the main character Rain here, played by Kaylee Spaney, and she has a kind of as she called, it's kind of her best friend / brother Andy, who's an android. You guys figure this out pretty soon in the movie. What did you think about those two characters and their interactions, or specifically what Rain to begin with?
Yeah, I think Rain was a good enough character to kind of be the counterpoint to Ripley from the original ones.
Definitely.
I'm interested in if they're going to do sequels to this, like where her character goes. But I like the idea of like she's going to be like an interesting like her background, with being on a minor planet and then going into the situation where she's coming face to face with an alien. Like she wasn't necessarily fearless, but she's trying to hold her own, and is trying to she's put in a situation she doesn't really want to be in, but she's feels like she has to be in. And then like how she handles it, like all this reminds me of like Ripley, a lot of it. I don't feel like she's as badass as Sigourney Weaver's character was specifically, but she's got elements to it that I was interested in, that I think is interesting.
Yeah, I liked her overall as a character. She's very likable. I think that's just the actress in general too. And she's in this position where she wants to get off this planet because of, basically it's death if you stay there in the mines. And she actually really cares about Andy. She's trying to get both of them off to that planet possibly. And then obviously we find out more things later on, but I found it. I like there was like a romance between her and Tyler, right? That's like her ex-boyfriend. So then they hint at it. And I'm glad that they don't like dwell too much on it, though. It wasn't needed, which I really liked. Like, it's not about that. It's about surviving at a certain point. And she's really resourceful, too. So I think that's one of the things, like Ripley, she's very similar to. Like, obviously, she's like a proto version of that, right? In a way. Like, they're trying to bring that up.
A little greener. Yeah, because she doesn't have the history.
Yeah, a lot younger.
She was a trucker and has a lot more experience in the mechanics and the mechs and stuff like that. But in this case, she's just first time really experiencing anything like this. But like you said, really resourceful, quick off her feet. So yeah. Interesting.
I really
Mikey,
feel like she's like the emotional glue of the group, right? So she has a lot of like emotional sides. Like she learns stuff about Kay, and they kind of bond a little bit, and it kind of comes to fruition later on in the film, which I'm sure we'll get into later on. She has this whole like kind of combativeness to Bjorn because he's not the nicest to Andy, right? And she's kind of like his sister. Yeah. So it's like she's almost like the emotional piece to this whole group. Like she has this relationship with each member, and it's a little different for each one, but you don't really get a lot of emotion out of some of the other characters as much as you do from her. So it's nice to see that kind of relationship she had with each of the members.
Yeah. Definitely. Marco, what did you think about Andy?
I think it was interesting, man. They do something different where it's not really a spoiler. It's like right at the beginning of the movie, but he's a synthetic, and he's like not all there. He's damaged goods basically because he's a used synthetic, a used android. So he has like
dad fixed him apparently, right? And
right. He salvaged them, fixed them up, and used them kind of as a guardian / friend for Rain. And she essentially like grew up with Andy, and it gives his character more personality. His little ticks, because he's semi malfunctioning, I think add more to it as well. They do sort of like a dual threat aspect in this movie where like in every movie you're kind of sus of every synthetic, of every android. And I think this movie does a great job in that, because although like Andy's presented, as a helpful resource and a friend to Rain, you're still sort of like semi-suspicious, and his little ticks, even though they're kind of innocent, still add a little bit of a creep factor to him. Like, is he going to break down and, go, psycho like in previous movies? And I like that, because you're bringing in a threat into already a threatening situation. And it's like that. It's like the wild card of the whole situation. And I think that the actor, he did a great job at that too. Like he was very believable.
I agree, yeah.
He added this innocent yet creep factor to it, and as soon as the creep factor starts, like you're like, oh shit, he like does really good at switching, into being creepy. I'm trying not to spoil things now.
We can talk more about that, I think, in spoilers too.
But overall, I think they've treated the lore of the androids and synthetics in this world pretty well. Fede Alvarez did a great job with that.
I liked him a lot, actually, too. He was he's almost more human than some of the human characters, to tell you the truth. The way that he acts and his actions he's quite a heroic character, and deep down inside, even though he's programmed to do it, there is something between him and Rain that he really does feel like he is a brotherly like guardian to her. And even if he gets shafted by her because there's certain rules that happen on certain things, like he's totally okay with it, because his whole directive is to make sure that she's safe and that just things that are best for her. So I really like that part of it.
Explore there that I think they do a really good job with.
His facial expressions when he is confused or like kind of breaking down was just spot on, in my opinion.
Very devastating, though, right?
Yeah, it's like, dude, you can feel this guy's pain, and like I'm like, we don't even know him yet, but like in the very first scenes you're seeing him, and it's like, dude, there's something wrong with this dude. Like you can tell just right off. So
his little jokes are funny too.
Yeah,
I like those.
The dad jokes.
Yeah. Just adds a little more to like, hey, I like this guy. What about the cinematography and music? What did you think about it, Mikey? I'll go to you just because you started out with the feel and the look of everything. Did you like how this was shot? Did you like how they used aspects of the original Aliens kind of theme music and added their own mix to it all?
I thought this was as good as it could have been. The sets looked amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything looked like it was just pulled from the other movies, and it just looked pristine. Everything that I hoped a movie would look like in this kind of time era is exactly what I got. And then the music, it's a little different than some of them, but it calls back to some of the other ones. So it brings some of the elements back in there, but it kind of still brings that tense feel throughout some of the scenes. I don't think it could have been done. If you're looking for a movie that has like callbacks to other movies, this movie is the perfect movie for it. They did a great job. Plus, I know Marco kind of screams about this every single time you do a movie, but practical effects. I mean, I remember reading some of the interviews by some of the cast, and they were saying that everything that you're seeing in the movie was pretty much physically there for them to act with.
Yeah.
So it's
pretty cool.
It's pretty cool that they can see, like, they were actually saying like the aliens' lips quiver and the drool, the saliva they had was actually in the scene. And so it made the reactions and stuff from the characters that much better, in my opinion. That's easier to act with than just seeing like a tennis ball or, you know, some of the placement sets they have for some of the CG stuff, right? I just, like I said, I think this is almost as good as you could get to kind of call back on some of these other films and make something that's cohesive with the, you know, the world they've already built.
100%.
Nabil, what about the connections to Aliens? There's some callbacks to it through lines, through some of the actions of characters, through the settings themselves. What did you think overall about that?
I really like the way they use this lore and to kind of connect everything into this film, even though it's kind of a in between the two movies. The fact that it's set in between I don't want to go into anything specific about spoilers or anything, but just to say that they find a way to show, to explain why there's any alien on this ship at all and how that comes about. And I actually thought it was pretty creative. Like, it seems realistic with the lore of what they're doing with the whole Wayland Corporation. And I know Ridley Scott's whole thing about Prometheus, he was all focusing on creation of man and how these perfect beings came to be. They kind of, I won't say they like ignore it, but it's really, it's not real. They should know about it, right? So it's them researching about things and trying to figure out things about these aliens. And so it's very interesting how they tie these together to show that they have why the ship is here, why the aliens are there, and how that kind of works into the lore without going into over explanation. Like, it just seems to make sense with the progression of what happened in the first film and how they got to this part before they go into aliens, and Ripley meets the company people again and starts figuring out their ulterior motives from that point. So I think it was a good bridge. To me, I know some reviews are mixed on like building this franchise because of the franchise lore is all over the place because of what Prometheus is and then what the sequels are after 2. But I actually think this was a good bridge to it. Like, it just seems to make sense to what the Wayland Corporation would be doing next to figure out what these aliens are.
I think some of the criticisms is the Disney part of it, and that they are almost, a lot of times, because they've run out of so many ideas, they feel like they just do like a fan version of a movie where it's like, remember when this happened in the other movie? So we're going to do something like that. And I see a lot of criticism of that, especially, and I can see that there are some times when they forcefully kind of throw some lines in that don't make any fucking sense in this film. Which is like okay.
There's a line at the end where it's like, okay.
It didn't make any sense. I know what line you're talking about. Yeah, even I was just like, I told Mike, it's like, oh, that's from the thing. And then I was like, yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense, though.
Yeah, no reason to put it in there.
Fuck.
Absolutely no reason.
Yeah. They were just like, hey, they're throwing their dartboard of like memories and nostalgia. They're like, what about that scene? They're like, okay, let's do it. Remember when Ripley said that to the Queen? Remember that? So, for the most part, I think they still do a decent job, like I said, but there are times in it where there is a little bit of that 2024 in there, just to add a little fucking mix to it, just to be like, hey, look at that. Hey. So I want to get into more, guys, but it's all spoilers. So let's just jump into our review, our rating, about this overall, 1 through 5. And if you guys would recommend it, I'll start with you, Mikey.
I give this one 4 stars. It's a definite watch for me. See it in the theater too. You're going to get a better vibe there. So definitely check it out.
Marco, what about you? What's your rating?
I also give it 4 stars. I think this is back to form of the Alien franchise and deserves to be seen in the big screen if you can.
What about you, Nabil?
Same exact thing. 4 stars, worth watching. And if you're like me and are a bit of a wuss with some of the horror stuff, this one's tame enough. You can get through it and feel thoroughly scared and still enjoy the film.
Nice. I actually give this one a 4.5 stars. I really, really like this one. This is going to be probably my top 10 for the year. Just let you know. And I'm looking forward to another rewatch soon when it's available in 4K. So let's get into our spoiler section. So if you do not want to hear about this, I would highly recommend, if you even think about watching this, skip this section, just go to our outro, because we will be spoiling the rest of the movie. About halfway through the film, we do get a scene with a synthetic / droid, android, whatever robot, what the fuck they call him. And it is a remake a bit, I guess. I don't really know what to call it, right? It's Ian Holm, but not really him, because he died many years ago.
Yeah.
As a character named Rook. He was Ash in the original film, so they have him in like hey, I'm still part of, Wayland Yutani, and we have to complete the mission. He's the one where they take the chip out of, put him into Andy. Andy starts acting differently because of that. And then, in a way, Rook is somewhat manipulating everything that's going on because they still want to finish the mission, which involves even some aspects of the story from Prometheus and Alien Covenant, strangely enough, which is getting way too complex now, right? So there's, by the way, I appreciated that they, I was like, oh, really, Scott, dude, I guarantee he's like, you got to include something.
This is lore now. It must be a part of this.
So what did you guys think of that appearance of Ian Holm? He is CG, he's voiced by someone else. I'm not going to lie, it's a little rough looking. I thought it was a little off. What did you guys think?
I think that at first, when they first showed him, it looked pretty bad, especially the chin area and the mouth. I was like,
getting that Tarkin from fucking Rogue One look. I was like, ooh, what's up with this?
Dude, I think it looked worse than that. I think he looked better when they showed him through the screen.
Yeah, and, because it's fucking blurry.
Yeah, when they show him through the screen, and later on, when he's got all the fucking white puke and shit all around him, then he looks a little bit better. But like the first few minutes, I'm like, that's kind of rough there. It's like they ran out of money or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It took me out of it. I won't lie, because the face was just really off. I get why they did it, because they wanted a connection to Alien, obviously, right? And it's the same. It's only like what 20 years later. That's the difference between the years. If you look at the years between things, so they theoretically would still have that model, right, going around.
They wanted him to say Prometheus.
Or he does say the same line where he's like, like the I don't know your chance of survival, but you have my condolences, or somewhere the fuck it is, whatever he says.
But this is kind of another example of like something they didn't have to do though. Like I feel like they could have just had
it's a fan service thing though. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, and it would have been good if they pulled it off, right? The CG looked good or whatever. Like you said, it took me out of it. Like the immersion was broken, right?
It should have been just a random another person. If anything, it should have been Michael Fassbender.
I was gonna say they should have just used Fassbender
and connected it to be like, there you go. That's what happened after Alien Covenant. He got on this ship somehow. I'm like, that don't make any sense. Like, I know, just roll with it though, please. We don't want to make a sequel to that movie.
Or this is what, right? So they could just have another one.
Yeah, or this is what
it's like Rogue.
Yeah, he's like towards the end of the line. This is like the last model that they'll make of that design.
Yeah, and it makes sense though. And then Aliens, you're talking about how that model going back to the Ian Holm one, that is the model that was like malfunctioning a lot though. Yeah. And it seems like this one takes his job a little too serious. You know what I mean? So let's get into this part then. Nabil, I want to bring this up with you. And Kay, played by Isabella Merced, is pregnant in the beginning of the film, and she is attacked by a xenomorph, and she's about to die, so she injects herself with the black goo, as we call it, from Prometheus / Alien Covenant, because supposedly it will bring you back from the dead or give you superpowers or something. And there's a sequence at the end where she gives birth, and the baby comes out, and it is a absolute freak of nature. It's a mix of like the engineers / a human / maybe more than, I don't know. It's fucking weird.
Alien Resurrection vibes, dude.
It didn't look as bad though, where it's like, I'm a swamp creature coming out of the thing. But, yeah, it was creepy. Look at me, though. I look like oatmeal. So this one was pretty wild. What did you think about that? And did you like that it connected back to those 2 prequel films that Scott really loves?
I actually did. I thought it was an interesting, because
unexpected.
How
right?
could you? Yeah, it was unexpected. How could you expect it to connect to Prometheus? That's supposed to be like way in the past, right? And they did this, and I was like, hey, look, there's the engineer right there. I was like, that's it. I thought it was a good kind of callback. They didn't have to have it to make it look like that. but I think that it also adds to that kind of idea of connecting all the beings together and trying to make that perfect specimen or species. That all seemed to work for me. And like what did Rook say? It was like 25% there they needed to do. That's why they needed to do the take that goo out or whatever, the sample, so they can rework it. They were on their way to perfecting it. So
he even shows a canister on his hologram from like Prometheus, where they originated from, which is kind of
exactly cool. So I think that all connected pretty well in regards to like the goal is to go and figure out how to recreate that, and they're getting pretty close to it. You know, even though this maybe their first trial on a human, technically speaking, you know, like that's what ended up happening. It was I thought it was a good surprise, and like I said, it looked creepy enough for me. Like, oh my god, what are we dealing with here? Like, I'm scared to see what's going on here. You know, so I enjoy that.
Marco, what did you think about that ending sequence with the fight with the? There's a name that they have for it, but I apologize. The hybrid creature.
The hybrid. First of all, I think it was fucking awesome. Like Nabil said, it was unexpected that they had that hybrid thing in there. To me, like, I know this is probably going to get frowned upon, but I feel like it connected all the films up until Resurrection, because they even I remember like the scientist in Resurrection also said, you know, it's perfect, and he repeated those lines that are also repeated
for him.
And and it kind of shows how they were able to clone Ripley. I know that's super like, you know, frowned upon and shit and controversial. I cloned Ripley, whatever. It made that plot line a little bit better for me. But this sequence of them like falling into the ring of the planet while fighting this thing was beautiful, man. Mikey mentioned the cinematography.
It looks awesome, dude. It looks really.
Mikey talked about the cinematography. That looked just fucking chef's kiss to that, dude. It's probably some of the best like space special effects I've seen in a long time. Like probably like since like Interstellar. And it kind of like sort of in a weird way reminded me of that too. It was just filmed so well. Fede Alvarez did a great job with what he had, and it showed that they, you know, respected, you know, the look of this. And it's a sci-fi film. You got to save some budget, you know, to make it look like really good. And it was tense, and it's cool to kind of see like the ship ripping apart by the ring little by little as they're trying to escape. It was fucking awesome.
It was also cool that you could see the space station in the background while that all was happening.
Yeah,
like you can see like some of the scenes. You see the thing just getting destroyed by the rings, and you're like, "Damn, okay, that they were just there a minute ago." And then you didn't have to do that; they could have done without that, and it just was like a little touch that they did. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, no, it looks really good looking, and it's very reminiscent that ending scene of the original Alien once again, though, where you think it's over and she's about to go, and then, you know, suddenly there's a creature and things are going wrong, and it just turns really chaotic. I like the aspect of that whole thing, and it's wild. And then you see the fucking creature like eating. It's like eating her, right? I was like, ugh, so nasty.
That's his mama.
So, Rain and Andy, though, Andy's damaged, but his core or whatever his hard drive is saved somehow. So Rain wants to fix him. And Rain goes to sleep and kind of leaves like a recording log, like, "Hey, this is, you know, she survived. They're on their way to that planet, I believe." Would you guys want to see the story continue here, or do you want to see other kind of spin-offs? I'll leave the floor open for everyone.
I'd rather see something new.
Really?
I think the characters were good. I liked them, but I don't see these characters jumping back into this world and being successful again. Like I did see with like Ripley being a good character, jumping into another one worked for me. But these characters, I think they should just leave it the way it is, because it's really well done. And I think they can't really top what they've already done. So why do more? I guess is what I'm saying.
You could make a video game out of it.
Not sure.
I think it'd be awesome. She crash lands on the thing and it turns into a horror game.
I disagree. I think they could still continue with these characters, because even Ripley becomes the character she is because of her past experience. And same with Rain. Like Rain was obviously more of a rookie than Ripley. Ripley had probably been in that career for a while, but still, like, you got to see how the Weyland-Yutani company affects like the entire galaxy and stuff because of their shady business with trying to make the perfect creature with the xenomorphs. You could see how they've been affecting like other colonies and shit because of their search for this. And she thinking she got escaped this fucking ordeal, it keeps affecting her as she, tries to get away. Like she tries to go to another planet with Andy and live like, I guess, in paradise with like the perfect sunset, whatever. You could see that like get completely destroyed because of what Weyland-Yutani is trying to do. So plus, I think she's more of a hardened character at the end. And I don't know, man, like her and Andy are just like pretty interesting characters. Like their whole arc from, his prime directive being like, what's best for Rain to what's best for us at the end, I think is touching and something they can continue on.
I agree with Mikey. I don't think everything needs a sequel. I think some things this is good. Let's not ruin a good thing. There's very interesting things. We now know that, because let's face it, outside of the Ridley Scott and James Cameron movies, there wasn't really any solid like alien films until now. So
true. It's
kind of nice to see that Fede Alvarez is, he's up there. He's done a good job for the most part with his films. I don't like all of them, but I think sometimes I don't think we need to know everything. Just like we don't need every plot line written out for us. Sometimes it's good to have a little mystery. Like, hey, I wonder what happens to him. Like, I don't know. Maybe they have a happy ending. Maybe they don't.
Maybe they crash into an asteroid and die.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe that's 200 years in the future.
For the most part, though, overall, I thought it was a really good movie. So I highly recommend it. So any last words, guys, before we end it?
I wanted to see Dora the Explorer become a queen. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh yeah, remember that we were talking. I was like, does she? We kept thinking, me and Mikey, throughout the film, because it'd be like, I just talk a lot during movies. I don't care. And I was like, is she gonna become the queen for like Aliens 2? Like Aliens is this leading in? Like, are they gonna crash? And that's why this other. I thought that was the mining place. It's like, is that gonna turn into the fucking place they show up to in the second movie? And no, it's not.
That would have been cool. Yeah.
But see, once again, maybe me and him got the nostalgia glasses on too much. But I thought because she was pregnant and then she injected it, I said, oh, that's how they get a queen, because this is a weird incident. Like, this is not normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of fit, right?
Like, but no, the fucking
like
thing was eating her neck. I was like, oh, shit, never mind. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I was like, whoa, buddy. That's your mama.
Jeez.
He was like,
what the fucking long ass tongue.
Dude. All right. That's the end of the podcast. We really appreciate you all for tuning in. Marco, let them know how they can reach us on our social media.
You can listen and follow us on your preferred podcast platform. We are everywhere. For a convenient link to all our social media channels, visit linktree/moviepalspod. That's linktr.ee/moviepalspod. And remember, smash that subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode on this ship or the next.
Catch us on TikTok for sneak peeks of upcoming episodes and more exciting movie content. Follow us at Movie Pals Pod.
Make sure to tune in for our next episode, podcast number 182, where we will be continuing our journey into Star Trek with a review of Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, as well as a review of the new 4K remaster of the 2011 movie Drive.
Thank you, Nabil. Until next time, this is James,
Marco,
Nabil,
and Mikey.
Have a great one.